Madam President, on January 20th, I joined my colleagues on the front steps of the Capitol for the inauguration of our 46th President, Joe Biden. At a time when divisions run deep within our country, I thought President Biden's call for unity, where he pledged to be a president for all Americans, struck just the right tone. As my Democratic colleagues in this body can attest to, I'm always willing to work with anyone, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, on issues that will improve the lives of my fellow Iowans and all Americans. Sadly, the actions we've seen in the first few days of this administration do not seem to honor the promise President Biden made to Americans throughout his campaign and again on Inauguration Day. In just 2 weeks, the president has already signed over 25 executive orders. That's a significantly more amount than any president in recent history in this short amount of time. And let's be clear, folks, he's not just breaking norms, he's obliterating them. Even the New York Times editorial board called on him to ease up on the executive actions. And they're not wrong, folks. That's something that I don't say very often. Now, I fully understand that the power of executive order is often unpopular when your party does not control the White House. But when you set out to be the unifier in chief, which is something we hoped President Biden would be, one would hope that the actions you take would unify or at least be a little more mainstream. The reality is that's just not been the case. What the new president has done in just 2 weeks on the job is show us his true colors and his desire to appease the more radical wing of his party. It's disheartening for someone who believes that the way we should be working together is a bipartisan path. We've already seen disastrous decisions harmful to American businesses and workers, decisions that resemble the likes of the radical Green New Deal. Keeping our air and water clean and protecting our environment for generations to come are shared concerns of every Iowan and all Americans. But on day one, as many predicted he would do at some point during his tenure, President Biden issued a harsh punishment for American businesses by rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement. This agreement saddles hardworking folks with overburdensome government regulations, all while letting one of the world's biggest polluters, communist China, completely off the hook. Instead of inhibiting economic growth, we should be focused on reducing our emissions and meeting our energy needs through market-driven, innovative solutions. Iowa actually leads the way in creating renewable energy sources, from wind and solar to biodiesel and ethanol. But we haven't done it through heavy-handed government mandates. The president has also raised concerns for folks in my home state of Iowa who work hard to grow and produce clean ethanol and biodiesel. With his recent action to begin transitioning federal government vehicles to electric vehicles, ethanol and biodiesel are actually cleaner choices of fuel for folks at the pump. A recent study found that greenhouse gas emissions from corn ethanol are 46% lower than gasoline. At the same time, renewable fuels provide for the livelihoods of folks across the heartland. It's critical we continue to invest in our biofuel industry, not move away from it. That's why I urge President Biden not to give in to the misguided political demands of the left. Change course and instead promote the adoption of higher biofuel blends and invest in expanding biofuel infrastructure. On the same day he got us back into the Paris Climate Accord, President Biden unilaterally canceled the Keystone XL pipeline, destroying thousands of jobs during a pandemic when millions of hardworking Americans are already struggling to make ends meet. Even Canada's Prime Minister, one of our top allies and closest trade partners, expressed his disappointment in the decision. Unfortunately, the Green New Deal light is not the only policy of the liberal left the Biden administration has already chosen to implement. As many Iowans know, I've long been working to pass Sarah's Law, my bill in honor of Sarah Root, a 21-year-old Iowan who was tragically struck and killed by Edwin Mejia, who entered the country illegally and was driving drunk 3 times the legal limit. While Mejia was initially detained by local law enforcement and faced state charges of motor vehicle homicide, a loophole in immigration policy under the Obama-Biden administration allowed him to post bond, disappear, and escape justice. Sarah's Law would close that loophole and require U.S. Customs and Immigration Enforcement to take custody of an illegal immigrant who is charged with a crime resulting in the death or serious bodily injury of another person. It's common sense, folks, and it would prevent tragedies like what happened to the Root family from ever happening again. The Trump administration was successful in implementing parts of this important legislation. But as many expected, the Biden administration is already working to roll back immigration enforcement. That's why last week I reintroduced Sarah's Law with the support of 19 of my colleagues, more than ever before, and I'm going to keep fighting to get this bill across the finish line. If the November elections taught us anything, it's that the American people want us to work together. They elected a 50-50 Senate and a slim majority in the House of Representatives. So, Mr. President, it's time the Biden administration follow its own advice. I'm an eternal optimist, and I believe we can come together and truly deliver for all Americans. But I need my colleagues across the aisle and our new president to do the same so that his calls for unity don't fall on deaf ears.